This is George. George is a fearful 4-year-old mixed breed dog who lives in Century City, kind of ish area. And George is not a big fan of people he does not know. So in this video, we're going to go over some tips that you can use if you have a dog that is not a fan of strangers. We call it stranger danger. Now, if you go ahead, you can go ahead and turn around and come and pan on me. All right. Now, I made a little bit of a tactical error before. The Guardian is sitting there. We're in this nice little outdoor nook that they don't use very often. I am sitting here, and this is the exit. Now, there's another door that you just saw in the shot where that was locked. George would not come this way because I am blocking him. I am in between him and the exit. So one of the first things I want you to do, be mindful of, is anytime we're anywhere with George, we're going to make sure that he has an exit, and that if there's only one exit and there's a person, we're going to try to have the person not in between George and the exit so he doesn't feel uncomfortable. And so he feels like he has an escape route. Now, the Guardian wants, one of the goals she has is him not to be so reactive and fearful of people. And a lot of times when we have dogs that are fearful, we want to pet them to help them understand us, and as a guest especially. And you can go ahead and film him a little bit. I can talk, it'll be a little bit better footage. We see a little George action. And you see George right there, you see his tail is tucked a little bit. And so that's an indication he feels very uncomfortable. Now it's going between his legs, so very much uncomfortable. He came out to take a treat that I'd thrown on the ground. He got his victory and he ran away. That's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that. That actually took a lot of courage for him to come out. That's a wonderful thing to do. I like to help dogs in stages. If a dog has a fear or something, sometimes I might have them just deal with the sound of that thing, or just the sight of that thing, or just the smell without the other elements there. We're trying to give him a piece of it that's small enough for him to take a bite-sized chunk out of. All right, so for guests, if you are somebody that's watching this, you want to work with George, ignore George. Don't try to pet him. Don't talk to him. Avoid direct eye contact. Those are things that are going to probably make him feel less comfortable with you. If he comes to you, hold still. Don't try to pet him. Don't talk to him. Don't move. Big herky-jerky movements are going to cause him to feel uncomfortable. So it takes a lot of nerve for him to come up to a stranger. So this is probably going to happen later, but if he does come up to you to sniff you, hold still. Don't try to pet him. Don't make any big movements. Also, if you can control your environment, try not to have, a big explosion on the TV or the dishwasher on or whatever it is. All those, he's sound sensitive, so all those extra sounds are going to work against us. I like to wait for a dog like him to come up to me 3 to 5 times a sniff before I even start to pet. When I do, I might just offer my hand like this. Now, when a dog is facing an animal that's going to attack them, they're going to attack them like this. They're going to see the bottom part of the hand. So I like to try to offer the top part of my hand. I don't shove it in the dog's face. I just offer it a little bit apart from my body to see if they're interested. And if he turns his head away or refuses to look at you, that's him saying no. That's not him being, I don't hear you, or I'm being obstinate. I'm saying, I know where you are. I can smell you. I know you're here. I don't want to interact with you. The more you try to chase him, playing hard to get works great for dogs, especially fearful dogs. So the more you try to engage with him, the less he's going to like it. So as a guest, you want to come, when you're here, you want to try to use small movements. You don't want to catch him off guard. If you have coughing or sneezing, don't have that person come over. That's going to be a lot of extra sounds. If I have to get up or if I do something, I'm going to make a fake cough to get him to look at me. Then I'm going to do that thing. And when I move as if I'm in, I call it fluid movement, as if I'm underwater. It helps him see that I'm moving slow. Now, slow can be a warning to dogs, but I don't want him to get caught off guard. That he turns around, I stood up and I walked over, and now he's like, oh, snap. So, all right. So the way that I met George was we did a treat trail. So I would recommend you do that. Now, I mean, because Beverly is kind of busy, even though you have kind of a weird, unusual part of Beverly that you're on, you might even do the corridor that runs down here because it's going to be quieter. So what I did is I left a treat trail, and I used Stewart's freeze-dried beef liver, and I chopped them into little tiny pieces with a straight-edge knife. He eventually took my lower value treats, but not taking a higher value, not taking a treat is a good indication a dog feels uncomfortable. And you can keep filming him every time he comes out. I'll just keep on talking. So what I would do is I would leave a treat trail and put the treat trail down when it's a quiet day and there's nobody out there. So when I do the treat trail, I start it right outside the door, and I start, the first couple are about 6 inches apart. Then I go to about 12 inches apart, then about 2 feet apart. But I'm doing this very gradually, and I make it a straight line so he can see that. And so basically what we want him to do, and again, you can see he's hunched over, he's moving slow, but he is sniffing. We like that. But his tail's tucked, and there we go. All right, so what we want him to do is come out and get used to collecting these treats on this treat trail, and then at the end, and you're gonna leave the treat trail, and where I was sitting kind of in the grass, I would put a handful of them in there, so he goes over there and he's sniffing the grass, he's licking up all those treats. We're creating a positive association and helping him just comfortable with this. Again, try to avoid it when traffic's there. I guess we won't have grass. If there's grass over here, I can't remember in that courtyard. But basically, you're gonna do that and get him used to that, and then basically what we wanna do, and if it gets too hard, you can just film me, that's fine. But basically, what we want to do, George is also scared of the camera, so we don't want to spook him. So then what we're going to do is we're going to do that treat trail and have him practice that. And then basically, when you're going to have somebody come over the first time, if they're going to come here, although I have a different option for you, I would have that person sitting at the edge of that treat tray. And so when George approaches, I like George to approach, the dog to approach from like the 4 o'clock or the 7 o'clock kind of range. So not coming directly behind you, but they're not coming in front of you, more to the side and to the back. If he comes up to you, when he comes up to you, have some treats in your hand and just toss the treat behind him. One of the things people do is they try to put the treat between them and the dog to lure the dog closer. He doesn't want to be closer. And so what we want to do is create almost like a reverse psychology. So if George is right here and I throw the treat behind him, he turns around to go get that treat. That allows him to have a little extra space, which makes him feel a little bit more comfortable. But he likes the treats I have. So he turns and looks back at me, and he looks back at me, and I throw the treat on the other side of him, again, behind him. And what you find is a lot of times, after a while, the dog will start coming closer and closer to you. When he looks at you, you say yes, and then you throw the treat on his right side or left side behind him, causing him to go away. Now when he comes towards us, he's choosing to come to us. Now he's doing a little chortling and barking. That's his way of saying, I disagree. And the guardian's doing a great job of not disagreeing with him for doing that, because he is allowed to have emotions. He's allowed to communicate. So basically when he comes up to you, you're throwing a treat behind him, and he goes and gets it, and then he's coming back to you. What is he doing? He's practicing coming back to you, choosing to. You're throwing, and then you're saying yes to mark that I like it when you come to me, and then you're throwing a treat behind him, which allows him to have what he wants, which is more space, and then he gets a reward. So it's a whole bunch of good positive things that come for him. So I like to do this treat toss behind the dog because it really helps the dog engage with the person more, but they're doing it more at their pace as opposed to the other person's pace. Remind me, and I'll show you after we get done with this video how you can fix him being fearful of the camera. Okay, so now because he likes other dogs and is not a big fan of people, what I would love to see you do is reach out to your friends that have dogs and have a yard. And basically, what I'd have you do is go out for a walk, go to their house and walk them together on what we call a parallel or a buddy walk. So they're walking next to each other. We like the dogs next to each other, but they don't have to be this close. If they have to be 10 feet apart, whatever it is. Now, if they're giving indications they don't want to meet each other, that's fine. Don't move forward. But if they do show that they want to, you can let them sniff and do that. It's not we're saying we can't. We just want to start this off by being outside because he's probably going to be fearful of the handler of that dog. So the dog kind of provides a little bit of a distraction. We go outside and letting them sniff and do their thing. And after the, 1 minute, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, or whatever, and the dogs seem pretty comfortable, then we go ahead and go into the backyard. Try to avoid going into the house. Outside has the benefit of a lot of distractions, and the open space helps them feel a little bit more relaxed. So basically when we go in the yard, then you're gonna let the dogs play. Now we want to keep this visit on the shorter side, so maybe 15, 20, 25 minute play. If it's going really well, we go up to 25 minutes, but we want to end before they want to end. We want him to remember wanting more of this. The person throughout this whole thing shouldn't talk to him, try to pet him or do anything. If George ends up coming next to them, bumping into them, they still don't try to talk or pet him. This first visit is just to establish that you're with a dog, so George's opinion is going to feel better of you because you're with a dog, and you didn't do anything. He was barking and lunging at me when we were inside at one point because he just didn't want me to be there. He wanted more space. We moved outside. He's not done it once because he has more space than the outside distractions. But this is a long visit for him, probably longer than we'd like. So what we want to do is go to the person's house, go directly into the backyard. We let the dogs play for 15 to 30 minutes, and then you guys leave. And so he has exposure to that person without them coming in. The next time, maybe we do that, and after a couple minutes in the backyard, you open the door and you guys go inside. You leave the dogs outside if they want to play. The dogs are probably going to follow you inside, and the person's still ignoring George. But now George is like, okay, I've been here before. I sniffed the ground before. I played with this dog before, and nothing bad happened. Even though you think petting him is going to be a good positive thing, it's only a positive thing if he interprets it as a positive thing. So the more space that you give him, the better, more comfortable and relaxed that he's going to feel. And after a while, he gets to come up to you and he gets to choose when he decides. We know we have his consent when he comes to us, unless he's lunging. And so he's choosing to come to us. He's curious about us. Comes to sniff you, that's what we're looking, just hold still and let him do that. When after he's, and then maybe the second trip, third trip, fourth trip, that's when the human can try to start offering him treats. And when I offer a dog a treat like him a treat, I would offer it to my side like this. I don't want to look at him. I don't want to be front facing to him. I don't want to hold it like this. I hold it in a flat hand and I hold it at nose level or a little bit lower. And if he comes over and licks it up, I hold my hand there. A lot of times they're like, did I not get it all? They come back and lick your hand again. He's getting an extra association. Now, after a couple of visits, when it's starting to go well, then you might have them come over here. You don't have a huge backyard, but you have an outside area that they can run around. And if you open your doors, it's Southern California, we can leave it open. They can run in and out, and you guys can be sitting in there. And now he's already had a warm up with this dog. He's met this dog. Now this dog and the person who's kind of warming up to now comes to your house, but maybe you do the treat trail. At the end of the treat trail, hey, it's my buddy and his human. I get a bunch of treats, and then we go play, and so we're building these positives together. And it's going to take maybe 1, 3, or 5 visits, but eventually, hopefully, he's starting to warm up to the person, just like your mom and the other people in his life that are now inside of his circle that he feels comfortable with. Now, I'd love if you're going to do this, try to do it maybe once a week for like 3 or 5 weeks in a row with that same person, so he kind of builds up, and then maybe you add a second person. And maybe you get a dog, a house where there's 3 dogs, or you guys do a group play.
Okay.
But you've done with them all the dogs individually and got to that point first, and then go to somebody's house. Now, when you actually have somebody come here, when you have the doors open, at one point when the dogs kind of settle down, I would get them lick mats. Now, you can put cream cheese, peanut butter, or frozen yogurt on the lick mat. Make sure you do that a couple times before with the dog without being fearful of anything until you get used to it. And then basically, when the people come over, after a while, that person should be able to come over without their dog. You put the lick mat down farther away. Now, when people come over, make sure that they don't sit between George and the door. And so you put it down the floor somewhere, and a lot of them have suction cups, so they can't move it around. He's licking while the person's there. Licking and chewing release the feel-good endorphins, oxytocin, and serotonin, known as the love drugs. And so this is a nice way to start building a positive association with the person here. And again, for the people, don't try to pet George unless it's been after multiple visits and he's coming up to you. And at that point, after a couple visits, then I might ask for a sit. If he backs up a couple steps and sits, he's saying, I'm comfortable sitting with a couple more steps away, escapability. And that's fine. Then if I have to throw the treat, that's totally fine. The goal is not to do it that fast. The goal is to get him comfortable enough to sit. And so if he sits, even if it's 5 feet away, then he's saying he's comfortable. But eventually it'd be nice where we say sit, and he sits without moving away and give him the treat. I wouldn't start trying to pet him until you've achieved that sort of response. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. So now you can also get them bully sticks and things like that to chew on. Just be careful when there are other dogs around, because that's a higher value item, and we don't want to take any chances with him having a negative association with a dog. Let me see. For people, if they can, try to sit sideways to him. Front-facing approach is very confrontational to dogs. And when you do pet him, don't try to reach over his head. Dogs don't really like that. Let me see. What else? Trying to think, is there anything else we covered that I've mentioned off camera that you want me to incorporate in this?
I'm thinking.
The other thing you can do, another activity would be go for a buddy walk you go to your friend's house and just go for those buddy walks. Mm-hmm. And maybe you don't get to the backyard the first visit. Mm-hmm. If the most important thing was to go at his pace. If he's showing signs he's uncomfortable, mm-hmm. he's hunched over, he's stiff, he's tense, he's not engaging, he's not looking at things, we probably push too long. So it's better to have it a shorter visit, it's more successful, and stack those on top of each other.
And is that walk good if my friend doesn't have a dog?
Yeah, that could be. It could be. It depends on how he reacts to it. Now, sometimes I'll do that. Sometimes I've done that where I have the person, I give them high value treats. Maybe they have the stewards, mm-hmm. and they're walking ahead of you. Mm-hmm. And every once in a while they say George, and he looks. They just drop a treat, and then they keep walking, and then George walks up. So now it has a little bit of that person's scent on it, and George is approaching them, and good things are happening. And so the main thing is, again, we just want to go at George's pace so that he feels comfortable and confident.
listen to your instincts as well. If something tells you that something's going,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and be mindful of, like I said, outside sounds, the plane above, somebody with a weed eater. If you're in the middle of an introduction, that sort of stuff happens, walk away with George, and then wait for that to pass, and then come back to it. So it would be nice if you could start the visits at their house if they have dogs, and then work your way up to come into your house with the dog, and eventually after 3 or 4 visits, maybe the person comes over without the dog.
Mm-hmm.
But George is now comfortable with them, leaving both doors open, so if he can, no matter where he goes, he has an exit.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually, maybe going for a walk. Well, he doesn't like walks though, right?
Oh, he loves walks.
Oh, he does. Okay, I have another client that does not like being outside at all, so she doesn't like walks. So yeah, pairing things that he likes to do with the scary thing can be helpful,
Mm-hmm.
as long as we don't do it so much that he feels uncomfortable. All right, well, this is my buddy George, and these are some tips and tricks you can use if you have a dog that's a little bit fearful of meeting new people.